Hello, everyone out there today. Welcome to our podcast, Champions Are Built. This is Coach EJ, the brand.
And this is Coach Aaron, the source. Guys, special treat for you. We've got a guest on today's show, Bob Alejo, assistant strength coach for the Angels. Bob has over 40 years of experience in sports performance training. He's done a lot, but I'll give you a kind of quick synopsis and then Bob can fill you in if he wants. But stint at UCLA for what, almost 10, 12 years.
10
Uh,
years.
North Carolina State, Cal State Northridge, 10, 12 years with the Oakland Athletics, now with the Angels. He's also was the strength and conditioning coach for the U.S. Olympic volleyball team. So a man of many talents, many areas, many backgrounds. So I hope I did you justice. If I missed anything, please let me know. But no further ado, Bob Alejo. Bob, why don't you? I'm gonna start us off kind of slow. Uh, in baseball terms, we'll do a little soft toss here, kind of get everyone warmed up. And you're a Bay Area native, is that correct? And tell us.
Born and raised in Sacramento, California, and did most of my schooling in the East Bay area in Pleasant Hill, Concord area. Pleasant Hill was a College Park High School graduate and a Chico State alum.
All right. This is something that I want to get right into it in terms of some of the things I'm looking at. And I kind of want to first start globally and get some of your just initial thoughts on sports performance training and athletes in general and the importance of it. And I just want to backtrack, and really want you guys to understand where this guy comes from. This guy has worked with world-class athletes for a long period of time in a variety of sports. And I think that when you come from that sort of background, you have a repertoire of skills about training athletes that's very valuable. I mean, for instance, we started talking because we share one of my athletes, Robert Stevenson, that's with the Angels right now. And we got to talking, and we're both like, your name sounds familiar. Your name sounds familiar, and it turns out that you're at UCLA, and even though you were over all of the sports in terms of their strength and conditioning, you also worked closely with the track athletes. And we had a lot of people that we knew in common. And when I'm talking elite level track athletes back in the 90s and the 80s. And so you worked with John Smith, Bobby Kersey, they're athletes. I mean, these are some of the top performing athletes in the world. So it's not like you just worked with another track coach or just worked with another, sprinter. And so you get an insight onto what sports performance really is, because nowadays a lot of these terms, strength and conditioning, sports performance, are kind of thrown out there, and they've been kind of generalized. But there is a difference when you're talking about working with Olympic volleyball athletes, Major League Baseball players. You're talking about now training on what I call razor's edge. And it's not just as simple as, okay, here's kind of the common stock program. And I want people to understand that this is where you're coming from, and that they really need to have a close ear to what we're talking about. But to get back to what I'm saying, sports performance in general, what do you see, or where do you see its place right now for the everyday athlete?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that background with track and field, because a lot of what I've done years ago and even today is based on my work with track and field and another sport swimming, where you have times when you got to perform certain parts of the year. You got world championships, you got Olympic year, you got conference championships, USA championships, and you got to really be able to understand what periodization means. That's where I got my chops there. I don't think there's anybody better at doing it than I am. There may be plenty of guys who are as good, but I don't think anybody's better for the very reason you talked about. I mean, I was thrown into the best of the best right away, so I kind of learned as we were going, to the degree that I have a hard time with the term sports performance if you're a strength conditioning coach. I think what we get involved with is athletic performance, jumping, sprinting, velocity, and all that, right? All the athletic movements, endurance testing, strength testing, power testing, strength endurance testing. And then the sports performance group would be sport coaches, nutritionists, all, kind of the high performance model-ish sort of thing. That's what I think it is. So, I mean, in other words, here's why I say that. I don't like the word sports performance because it's not my fault that running back ended up getting 1.8 yards a carry in the game, right? He's healthy, jumps higher, runs faster, and I don't call the plays and I don't substitute, right?
Right.
At the same time, if you've got injured players and they're not getting faster, stronger, bigger, whatever our intention is on the physical side, then that is on me. There's no doubt about that. So, yeah, I mean, I just find it hard, to talk about, hey, I end up winning a gold medal or a national championship. Like, no. I was associated with that. People ask me a lot about Moneyball. How much, your programs then, how were they? What did you do? That must have really helped. And I say, I can't tell you how much they helped. I think I had some influence, but, to tell you I was worth 20 games or 40 wins, I don't know. All I know is what I did and what happened.
Right.
And the rest would be up to y'all. And I mean, scientifically and with some evidence, I could go back and say, well, of course I contributed to that, but I don't know how much.
Right.
But getting back to the sports performance side, generally speaking, I think that, when you talk about the elite athletes, I was really fortunate to be exposed to them because now I know what the very top is. I know what the ceiling is, right? I know exactly what it is on a world-class level. In fact, I was sitting at home last night. Have you seen that Butch Reynolds documentary?
No,
Yes.
Yeah. So I was watching that.
It's good.
Oh, it's good.
Really good.
It's good. But as I'm watching this, I'm listening. I think it's Netflix.
It's Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah. As I'm watching these guys run, I forgot Danny Everett and Steve Lewis were the number 1 400 runners in the world at the time, and then Butch comes in and I'm like, oh damn, that it just reminded me of the kind of the same thing you and I were talking about in the races that you ran against two of my guys. But so now I know what the ceiling is, right? I think the major problem right now is everybody down here, is being exposed to, I shouldn't say, the athletes down here are being exposed to this training immediately. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. That's not how it should be, right? So, in fact, I tell people, like, elite training, complex, intriguing sort of, mad scientist sort of stuff that I've done only happened with those people, like 1%. The majority of the I've written, the overwhelming majority are squatting it, pulling it from the ground, pressing it, the simplest, because they're not at a point where I got to get fancy. Like Jackie Joyner, I had to figure out how the heck do I move that thing a little bit. So you got to get Kevin Young, same thing. The year that he set the world record, he figured out I want to take one less step in between the hurdles. So I knew right away, well, I got to get this guy stronger. So our emphasis was on that because the intent was to feed the run, right? My intent when I work with a baseball player is not for him to hit the ball farther. It's to feed what he's doing to train to hit the ball farther.
Right.
As we both know, the strong guys always don't hit the
Right.
ball the farthest, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I've just really enjoyed watching Altuve up close this year. Yeah, I got to feel like he's, you know, he's top 5 in the league in terms of the best player. A guy that generates that much torque at his height and how he hits hard, he's a perfect example of that same thing. And we've seen plenty of pitchers who were big and lanky that can't throw hard, and then we've seen, you know, Tim Lincecum and we've seen Tim Hudson throw, you know,
Right.
mid to upper 90s,
Right.
right? So it's not how do I get that going? So I think the basics are what I continually rely upon. Like I don't get fancy at all. I've had to do it a couple of times with some college kids, but then again, as you both know, and you've seen this and heard it, the word elite is thrown around like it's the
Yeah.
easiest.
We've done a podcast on that. Yeah.
For me,
Yeah, we talked about that.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so I've come out publicly a number of times saying, stop saying that. It's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
I know what that is. Why?
Yeah.
Because I know them. You know, I coach them. It's the best in the world.
Mhm.
So, you know, basketball's played kind of worldwide. Baseball played worldwide. So they say, oh, this guy's an elite base player. I said, well, based in that group he is, but I wouldn't consider him an elite athlete.
Right.
You know, I mean, how can I consider that? You know, I mean, if I look at track and field, if I look at volleyball, I look at basketball, it's a little more worldwide. I say, okay, he might be an elite athlete, but there's a lot of things involved. So, again, I think when you think about the ceiling, and I know it, and you all know it well, you got to figure out, well, then what does that mean? The programs have to be written for the system, right? There's an elite system, and then there's sub-elite, and then, you know, beginning, and, you know, whatever, how you want to tier it. And in the end, it doesn't take much. Squat, pull it from the ground, press it, work on your, you know, your agility and skill movements. That's it. And people want to do all this stuff. And then, you know, so there's a couple things that comes out of that. When you're doing all this stuff, and let's say your athlete ends up jumping higher, how do you know which part of what you did made him jump high? There's no way you could figure it out because you're doing 100 things. And then when you consider age and maturity, I mean, EJ will tell you the same thing. I know he's smart enough to know that, you know, at 12 years old, he hits, she hits, and throws X, Y, and Z. And then at 14, she hits and throws X, Y, Z probably better. But I'm sure you're going to say, hey, it was me, EJ, my program, exactly what I did that did. No. In fact, I would bet somebody, like if we did some sort of competition, like, hey, I bet I can get, somebody came to me and said, I bet I can get my person stronger, faster, hit it far, whatever, faster than you can. I'd say, okay, how much time do you need? How about in a year's time? Let's see what it is. I'd say, okay. I'd tell my athlete, go do whatever you want. And while they're training and doing all this stuff, in a year's time, my person, without me doing a thing, from 12 to 13, is going to run faster and jump higher and everything else without me doing anything. Just age alone, right? So that tells you if that's the bottom part, then it doesn't take much, right? Get them some movement, get them some skills, you know, get them to coordinate, you know, get them to just do basic loaded movements with resistance, which we know is now safe, and just keep building. And you'll find that that's the easiest way to go. And the other example I would give you is that the reason I would also lay upon the foundations of the basics at 12, 13, 14, 18 is because I'm still getting kids at 18 as freshmen who are still making gains at 21, 22. So for sure, the kid down here shouldn't be doing what these guys are doing.
Right.
You know, shouldn't be going more than what they're doing. When all I'm doing with these football, basketball, baseball guys, same thing. Pull it, squat it.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I think this is intriguing to me, and I love this because Aaron and I talk about these subjects all the time about our athletes.
I bet.
In the shop all the time. You have these athletes that are down here trying to train up here. what happens to them? Like these guys are trying to do these movement patterns, and my sense is that there's a lot of failure there when they try to do those things, and there's injuries and there's all kinds of things. What do you see, or what's your opinion about it? Because it's intriguing to me.
Well, I wrote down what I think most of them do. So you have me, right? Squat, pull, press, basic, whatever our intention is, right? Or basically, my job basically is to make people run. This is how simple it is. My job is to make people jump higher and run faster. Period. The physiology that is underpinned by running faster and jumping higher is as wide as you can imagine. That's why a vertical jump is such a great test, or a 10-yard sprint, because there's a lot of physiology there that tells you about many, many things. So EJ, when you get these people doing all this, I saw what LeBron did, or I saw what whoever did, I'm going to do that. They're doing all this stuff. Well, of course they're going to make progress because it's loaded. There's some load involved, whatever it is, bands, hill running, volume, right? They're going to get something out of it, but it's not going to be what they think it is. And when they find out that that's the case, they feel like, well, I'm doing enough of that. So they start doing more of it. And then it becomes even worse, right? So I think the failure is that you're not going to be LeBron James. You're not going to be whoever, right? And you expect it, like most people expect, oh, this guy's going to cure me, right? This is going to be great. And in the end, you find out that they're not hitting the ball very well, or they're not running faster, or they're not scoring as many points on the court. So they think that what they're doing is right, and they just think I need to do more of that. That's the mistake. They got to, you got to figure out, and look, it's easy to track, and that's the problem. If you haven't done anything really, you start doing something, and your metrics will improve. Period. There's no getting around it. So then you think, well, I made a little bit of, I need to do more. When you take a look at their leg strength and it's poor, their upper body strength is poor, right? Their vertical jump was low to start with, and by training means it's still low, even though you've improved. So that's the problem. I mean, it's hard to convince. Look, all three of us here are fighting internet bullying. That's what we're doing, right? And so I'm going to give a lecture here in Southern California at the NSCA clinic here at the end of the month, and one of them is, social media bullying. Coaches, don't be bullied by social media. And what I mean by that is, don't think that if I don't do that video or whatever, people are going to think I'm done. So I got to do that. And now all of a sudden I see these workout sheets that are like, God dang, how much time of the day you going to be training? You got to do something else. It's really sad that they feel like they need to do more instead of like, look, let's take a look at what you're doing and what the outcomes are. And so that we all, look, we all find that, and I know coaches, God bless them, sport coaches really want their kids to do something. Hey, did you see what, I don't know, whoever is doing on, the internet? Did you see that? Like McCaffrey, did you see McCaffrey's speed workout? What? That's not a speed workout.
Yeah. We talk about this all the time, and you went just where I was going to go. It's the internet and the expectations that are created by all of these gurus out there. The parents see a snippet of something and, oh, that's cool. That's exciting. Look what, like you said, McCaffrey's doing. And they want to overlay that onto their 12-year-old. And they're forgetting about the basics. And I see that all the time. And I fight it with athletes who come to my gym because the expectation is they think they're going to, jump on boxes that are this high, and they can't even do a proper squat or lunge.
I know,
and then they're disappointed because, that excitement, or what I call entertainment value, isn't there.
Ooh,
And
wait a
yeah,
minute, wait a minute.
that's what I call it, entertainment.
Entertainment.
Entertainment. It's
And
great.
so I don't buy that because, like I said, I understand that it's the basics. I mean, me and EJ were just talking about this the other day. I said, all I want athletes to be able to do is run, jump, throw. That's it. Run, and it doesn't take a whole lot. Like you said, push, pull. If you can
Yeah.
master those
Yeah.
basics
Yeah.
efficiently and then ratchet those up, you're going to see some corresponding, you know, improvement in some of the other things you do as you acquire more technical skill. That's about as simple as it gets. But people don't want that. They want to juggle balls and stand on a Bosu ball at the same time. And
Yeah.
and I mean, yeah, it looks cool and it's fun, but there's only so many training hours in a day. And I said we got to spend our time on the things that are going to move you forward. And like you said, now you've
Right.
got athletes who have a laundry list of activities in a workout that's just not realistic. And a lot of it's just fluff. And I find athletes, they look at me crazy and the parents when I say, you should probably be out of here in an hour. I'm like, an hour? I'm like, yeah, an hour. It shouldn't
Yeah.
take you that long. Attack these exercises, do them the way they need to be done with the intensity and recovery that's prescribed, and you're all fine. Most people don't realize actually the little amount of work that it takes to improve.
Ooh.
But everyone thinks more is better. So everyone goes for volume. And that's what's sold to everyone from the Nike commercials and grind it out and beast mode. And, people think that they have to beat themselves up to get a good workout. And I always have to tell the parents, I say, look, training is about learning and acquiring skill. And sometimes that doesn't, yes, it requires some exertion, but it doesn't require exhaustion.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's where I think people are young athletes are hung up on that. I
They
tell
are.
this story all the time. I was a college athlete, sprinter, old school workouts. I was a sprinter, 600 breakdown, just max.
Jeez.
Yeah, work that just beat you up. And once I graduated college and I was running pro, got with Raymond Chimney.
Oh, you
And
did?
yeah, he was my mentor.
I didn't
And
know that. He's a good
and
one.
one of the first workouts that I ever had with him, we did just like a third of the work that I was used to doing. And I said, we're done? He says, yeah, that's it. I was like, what? I mean, and literally, once I started training like that on quality and specificity, boom, I took off. No injuries, no overexhaustion. I learned better. I retained things. And that was my epiphany was like, hey, look, it's not about the volume, and it's not about the end exhaustion. It's about the quality of the work and how you're going about executing that work. That's most important. And that's the hardest thing I think athletes and parents grasp right now because all of the other messages are completely opposite of that. EJ can attest to, the kid that comes in and
Yeah.
says, I got to take 500 swings a night. Well, probably after about
Yeah.
100, the rest
Done.
of those other 400 swings are probably crap,
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and
Golly.
so I'm glad you went there. I'm really glad that you went there because I think parents need to hear this, not just from us, but from other people who've, again, seen and know the difference of what it takes to move along because it's not as complicated as most people see it. And I think because of the commercialization of what we're doing,
Really isn't.
a lot of coaches and trainers feel that they have to sell some kind of secret sauce, or make it more complicated than it is. And it's really quite simple. And I think athletes and parents need to embrace the simplicity.
Yes.
I'm sorry, EJ, go
Well,
ahead.
that's a great point.
No,
I
go
mean,
ahead, Bob. No, Bob, go ahead because the simplicity is what it's all about to me.
Well, first of all, so I wrote some notes here, but I'm stealing entertainment. Just, oh, no doubt, no doubt. I'm good for that. But the other thing is some of these things that people talk about. So that, you want to say at some point when you're younger, you want to be as brash to say, that doesn't do anything or that doesn't work. Now, I know better now, right? I'm like, well, it does something, right?
Yeah.
But it's just not your best bolt, right? So I saw I can't think of the slide I'm going to put up, but it's in search of the 1% improvement, right?
Mm-hmm.
These people have these funky drills or lift with the one leg and the rubber bands and the weights hanging and and all that and they're like, God, that's I go, well, that does do something, but how much weight can you squat? How much weight can you pull from the ground? What's your vertical jump?
Yeah.
You want to make 1% on that vertical jump? How about get your legs stronger and make 10%?
Right.
So the search of the 1%, all these little, what do they call them?
Yeah.
Hacks now.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a hack on how you get rid of your back pain. Like you can just hack it. You don't have to go to medical school or anything. Honestly, interesting. So it's that kind of thing that kills me. That they're, God bless them, they're trying to get kids better and make improvements, but they're missing the big
Right.
ball, the big ball that's staring right in front of you that you're just pushing aside and saying, I'm going to do this one-legged, one-armed, eccentric, whatever. And I'm like, you're missing that. The other thing that both of you were talking about is density and specific and swimming timed events are about. Like nobody's out there going, hey, give me 600s with just give me 600s.
Yeah.
No, it's I want 600s. I want it at 90%.
Mm-hmm.
I want 3-minute rest in between. Let's go 2 sets of 3. I want 3 minutes in between the first 3, 10 minutes in between sets of 3. It's monitored, it's measured. It's measured and managed.
Yes.
Which again, people are wondering about the two biggest baseball things. I know EJ's gonna be climbing off. He's gonna be jumping out of the podcast onto my plate right here. Is what we don't measure and manage? We don't measure and manage how many swings the guys take. Can't figure out why guys retire at the end of the year. Now they probably should be anyway, but and who's doing the quality control on that? I mean, now they're hiring biomechanists, and that's ridiculous in the first place, but they're hiring biomechanists, you're filming everything, and you don't think at some point that pattern overload, so those guys are right-handed hitter, right-handed thrower, pattern overload doesn't come into that we should stop doing that, I mean, even guys in the 4x1, the 4x4 or the 4, they're running opposite curves too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we say, well, if they can run that way, they're also running that way. So they understand what all that means, the lopsidedness of it, right?
Right.
The other thing we don't measure manage is throwing the heavy balls. Can't figure out how we get a grip on these. And so I end up saying, to anybody, look, if you're not going to measure, if you got kids that are throwing heavy balls, there may be there's some benefit to that. The glenohumeral internal rotation, no, we thought that's what it was going to do. It doesn't do anything like that. But guys are throwing harder and all that, and I'll give you that part. But if you're not measuring how many throws they take, how many reps, what pounds, what's the load on those balls,
right? And
you're trying to understand arm injury, you might as well just throw darts. Mm-hmm. There's no way you can figure it out. There's no data that's valid or reliable in arm recovery if you're not doing that. And so that's about density and specificity. What are we doing, and how much time are we doing it in? Volume to me is the killer of all that's good. Killer. We've seen it. I've done it. EJ's done
yes.
I
Yep.
don't know if you've done it, Aaron, but I've been in the cage swing until your swing ain't your swing no more. But then what do you do? What do you do like on that group of swings that aren't any good after you've been in the cage for 20, 30 minutes? You do more. It's ridiculous. Right? It's
Well,
ridiculous. So it's that density. What are you doing? Measure and manage it and make sure that your quality is there. Track and field and swimming are perfect examples of that. The time that these people take in between 80 to 80+% speed, I'll say 85 plus. The time to keep in between the sets and reps of those runs, nobody does that. I mean, are we doing that in baseball? If we're teaching speed or football? No, nobody's doing that. Well, then you're not doing speed training.
Exactly.
So, that's like doing sets of 20 in the power clean, because I'm going to get more powerful. No, you're not. You're going the other direction. I really like that whole density specificity thing you guys mentioned.
It's so funny, Bob. Aaron and I talk about these things all the time, and people laugh like we're only taking 30 cuts today, or we're only taking like I go, well, we're only doing half the rack today, guys. You know,
Yeah.
and then they like, I want more. I go, what for? We're swinging bad. Why we want to create more bad habits? Or we talk about, oh yeah, we're going to do this extra program outside of Aaron's program, and that's going to make me stronger. What are we doing here? All we're doing is not getting better at the stuff that Aaron's trained you at to jump up to this next level, and then all of a sudden, like, you're going to be better. Not necessarily. And I laugh. I laugh with Aaron, and he says, EJ, and I'm like, hey, man, this is not right, man. People don't understand this. If you want to be a efficient athlete, I didn't say world-class elite athlete. I said efficient athlete to play at the next level. You need to have these things done now and be consistent at your work. I tell players, hey, go practice 5-10 minutes a day correctly and take your time doing it. And it might take you 20 minutes, but just do these exercises. And they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, be consistent and be smart about your work, and good things happen. I tell people that all the time, and they look at me like, hey, no, we want 45 minutes of this, an hour of this. And that's not necessarily true.
So I'll ask you guys this, like, what do you do when they come to you with, hey, this is what, I said LeBron, that's unfair. I mean, of all the guys that are taking care of it, I mean, he goes from nutrition to massage, he's got a posse, right? So I'm all in on that.